We're live. Countdown. Hello, I am Willie Bragg, host of the Willie Bragg Show, and this is the place where I like to discuss politics. And very political it is, in a good way. George Galloway, a former Labor MP, former Respect MP, and currently with, what's the new political party he's with these days? Let's see, Workers is it's called, and I guess it's affiliated with All for Unity, and that's a new one on me. But anyway, he interviews Niko House from the Mikasa network, and I watched it and found it very, very informative. As I said, George Galloway is, he was a Labor MP, and he was kicked out of the British Labour Party in 2003 for basically telling the truth about the Iraq War, and bastards like Tony Blair who sided with George W. Bush. Remember, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney are war criminals in the United States. So is Tony Blair. And so are many of the MPs in the House of Commons that voted for the Iraq War. They're just as accountable as the Democrats here in the United States, and of course the Republicans. So anyway, there is that. Niko House is he's a left-wing commentator. Worked on the Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign, worked on the Tulsi Gabbard 2020 campaign, and is a founder of the Mikasa network. And he's been doing politics for a long time, and a very interesting person. Anyway, well, let's talk about George Galloway for a second. In my opinion of George Galloway overall, I had kind of a negative opinion of him initially. He's a mixed bag. I like him better now these days. I was not exactly let's see, back in the 2000s when I became a socialist. I'm not going to say I was a right-wing socialist, but I had this kind of knee-jerk kind of Cold War style, almost Cold War liberalism, and a lot of social democrats in the West had that too. And they went around telling people, "Oh, I'm anti-communist too. I'm anti-communist," and they're not communists, but they kept on saying that as a knee-jerk reaction. And frankly, there's no real communism in the world today. I mean, and many of the communist movements in the West are, they work with social democrats, and it's rather reformist, in my opinion. And so now, George Galloway is what you would call old labor, which is awesome when it comes to the economics. On social issues, he is a mixed bag. As I said, he is kind of socially conservative, not exactly the best voting record as a Labor MP on reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights, things of that nature. And that was probably from a different time, and maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental. But on foreign policy, he was also kind of mixed. Well, I'm not going to sit there and bash tankies the way I used to. I would disagree with him about the Soviet Union demise being just kind of one of the saddest days of his life. It was something along the lines he said that. And I certainly am not going to cry over the demise of the Soviet Union. I have a kind of a mixed opinion on the Soviet Union too, in a lot of ways. But so anyway, about Niko House. Now, he gets a lot of crap by some on the online left, and it's because he's kind of independent minded. And and I agree. Yeah, there are times I disagree with him, but he usually backs his argument up pretty well. I mean, anybody trying to debate Niko House, good luck, But there seems to be a North Carolina connection. I'm not sure, is he from North Carolina initially? My program, Willie Bragg Show, takes place here in North Carolina, but I know he went to UNC Chapel Hill and worked on the Bernie Sanders campaigns in 2016. And in 2020, he again worked for the Tulsi Gabbard campaign. Now, Niko House has been accused of being anti-vax because, in my opinion, he's basically a civil libertarian. And so, it's sad that people who are civil libertarian are considered right wing today, when civil libertarians were pretty much the center left all the way to the radical left at one time. And his position on the vaccine and mandates and wearing a mask, all that jazz in the last 2 years is no different from another leftist that maybe y'all heard of by the name of Jeremy Corbyn, who's, you could say, is a comrade of sorts with George Galloway, the former leader of the British Labour Party. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the interview, and we will have a discussion. I'm going to put on fast speed, so hold tight, and I will share a few words afterwards. Okay, let me do this here. Okay, let the interview begin.
Niko House, welcome to the mother of all talk shows. Very good to see you, bro. Thanks for joining us. Let me ask you a question I asked Danny Hyphon. I saw Joe Biden so many times and I cringe. But I saw Nancy Pelosi this week, and she makes Joe Biden look like Cicero, look like Aristotle. How did America come to be led by two such people?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think we have to. Well, first of all, thank you for the wonderful introduction. You're too kind. I've been a big fan of the show for a while, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks.
But I think that we have to come to grips in the United States and accept the fact that our democracy is not in the hands of the people, but instead in the hands of the oligarchy. I'm one of those people who preaches when everybody would say, well, Joe Biden won legitimately, or Donald Trump got cheated, or whatever. I could care less about either of those things. My issue with our democracy, or lack thereof, is that we will never know.
Before I was rudely interrupted, I was talking to ace broadcaster in America, Niko House. It turns out that there was a network disruption, whether a natural occurrence or something else. I'll leave you to ponder. Niko, I just got from you that whether Biden was the legitimate winner or Trump was robbed, you don't really care. The real problem for American democracy is that we'll never know. And that was, I think, a very profound observation. Develop it, please.
Yeah, we'll never know, right? You have to, we have some proprietary software that the average person, even government officials, can't just get access to automatically to verify audits. You have a situation like in South Florida with Tim Canova when he was up running against David Washington Schultz, where she literally destroyed ballots after being subpoenaed by a federal judge with really no type of penalty to go to her or Brenda Snipes, really, after she was the one who was found guilty of it. Like, how can we be certain that those people in such high-level positions are actually representative of what we're doing? And when they're not representative of what we're doing, it's because we can't vote them out or vote them in with any type of certainty or confidence, which means they can't be held accountable. And when you can't be held accountable, that's how you end up with situations like right now with the Ukraine-Russia scandal, where the U.S. seems to be ridiculous, seems to be involved, not only obviously now, but from 2014 at least. And if you really want to go deep, we can talk about during World War II, how long the United States has been involved in caping for Nazis in the Ukraine. So when you can't be held accountable, you can do stuff like this comfortably and not worried about any retaliation from the public.
I think that's a brilliant observation and one worth everyone reflecting on. But here's another one. In a way, it doesn't matter because they're both two cheeks of the same ass. The Democrats and the Republicans, you couldn't slip sixpence between them, certainly on foreign policy and increasingly on domestic policy also. It really is two sides of the same coin, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Domestic policy. I mean, for all intents and purposes, George, I'm not sure if you know, but we actually got more money and aid during the pandemic from the Trump administration than we even had offered to us by the Democrats. And a little bit that was offered to us by the Democrats, they actually took back in tax returns. So we really can't tell the difference. And it's actually getting to such a degree that the Democrats are in direct opposition to liberty on all fronts. And of course, Republicans pretend like they're all about liberty as well. But that's really like, I don't really believe you guys either, because you still got your Marco Rubio, you still got your Ted Cruz's, and they sound just as bad as the Joe Bidens or the Nancy Pelosi's. But I will say the only good thing that's coming out of all of this is that there are leftists and conservatives on both sides. A lot of them are referred to themselves as populists on either side that are coming together and coalescing on the important issues such as foreign policy, such as, for me personally, I'm anti-mandate. It affected the Black community specifically in ways that didn't make any sense nor seem necessary. But those important humanistic issues we're coming together on, and you're starting to see the narrative shift, which in my opinion has to be the primary focus before we can start worrying about the politics of it all.
I agree with that. Labour, Conservative, Democrat, Republican. What we need is a liberty alliance that will try to recover the liberties that have been stolen from us, try to defend free speech against governments and big tech. Because without these two things, we actually don't have a democracy. If you think about it, if you don't have free speech, you don't have democracy, literally. And we are now in an era where free speech is not just under attack, it is virtually being murdered in plain sight. Julian Assange, yesterday, lost his appeal against the extradition order to disappear in a dungeon for 175 years in the United States. You and I, and one or two others, are about the only big figures left standing on the internet. People are being eliminated ruthlessly, one by one by one.
Yeah. Oh man, we saw what happened with RT America. You know, RT is still like producing shows and all that good stuff, but obviously nowhere near the impact that they would have. And by the way, they never actually cite what RT actually is lied about. They always claim it's Russian propaganda, but as you know full and well, we have conservatives and leftists all over RT and RT America and the subsidiaries. There's parody on every single show, even if you don't like what you hear. I mean, on RT, I might hear a liberal say something I do not like, just like I might hear a conservative say something I do not like. But that discourse is important for us to get down and really figure out what the problems are so we can offer valid solutions. But when you're able to attack an entire network to the point where one subsidiary is forced to close entirely, and you don't even have to provide any iota of proof of a single lie, then you're treading into very dangerous territory, and you cannot have liberty without free speech. Let's look at this Russia-Ukraine issue. If you even bring up the fact that the Azov battalion.
Okay. There's more to this, and I will. I'm going to continue. Let me just put myself back over here for a second. I just want to touch on a few points real quick. And one, Niko House talks about a populist left and a populist right movement, and populism is alive and well right now. It's a little sketchy because there are people on the left, they're like, oh God, populist left and populist right working together. That sounds like the Red-Brown Alliance. No, I mean, working with some people who voted for Donald Trump because, they like his style and they like the fact that they see him as a wrecking ball to the system because they've been had to. Doesn't mean they're a bunch of bigots, or white nationalists. Yeah, some parts of the Trump base are. Some of them, many of them are not. And grow up. That's just as when they do that, that's just as ridiculous as when the Republicans and the right wing in this country calls Democrats socialists. Now they're calling them communists, or I hear pedophilia. Those Democrats are pedophiles. I hear shit like that all the time, and it's down to the gutter. So there are people on the populist left and the populist right that have been had, and they're going to have disagreements. They're going to have disagreements on details and everything. But, if you're anti-war and you want to preserve the American jobs and American middle class, it's kind of give and take. I would say to be populist right, you're going to have to support unions at a minimum, or in a public option, in my opinion. I mean, I would say be like the right in Europe in that regard. At least they're for universal health care and for the safety net, and to some degree for workers. I don't mean the racist right. I don't mean the authoritarian right, but I mean the right who are maybe kind of traditional and maybe a little bit old-fashioned, and let's not judge because, we're all individuals at the end of the day, and we're all affected by our individual reality. Now, I like what George Galloway talked about, a liberty alliance, and he made a passionate plea for free speech. So did Niko House. And defending free speech is one of the things that I care about these days myself. I'm a free speech absolutist, and to sit there and not be ashamed about defending Julian Assange. I mean, Julian, you support a free press in this country and around the world. You got to support Julian Assange. I'm not saying he's a good man. I know he's flawed in many ways, but you know what? the people who are trying to put them in jail, whether it's your typical Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz type, or whether it's it's a Hillary Clinton and any other garden variety corporate Democrat, you could judge your enemy. You could judge your enemy by their quality or by how shitty they are. There's an analogy somewhere. I was trying to be clever, but anyway. But I love Niko House's quote: "You can't have liberty without free speech." Amen, brother. I totally agree. Now he said, I'm going to back it up a little bit because he talked about the Azov battalion. Hold on.
It's very dangerous territory, and you cannot have liberty without free speech. Let's look at this Russia-Ukraine issue. If you even bring up the fact that the Azov battalion was rewarded, which is a Nazi regiment, a Nazi battalion, it was initially a militia, it was rewarded for helping the United States successfully overthrow the Ukrainian government by being rolled into the official Ukrainian government. If you bring that up, and people will tell you, oh, you're crazy conspiracy theorist, that's propaganda. It was well documented. It's been talked about for years. We've been funding Nazism for years. But that story is harder to tell now because of all the subsidies that got taken down, people like you or me who are being either shadow banned from social media, whether it be Twitter, YouTube, whatever, and then people, organizations like RT being taken down, not for lying, because they never point out a lie. They never, as far as straight reporting is concerned, and you will never be able to point a lie from RT. But what you will be able to find are a lot of honest journalists who got tired of being demanded to lie from mainstream media organizations that they may have used to work at. That's what you will find a lot of.
Of course, it would be something if you were not allowed to be a liar on television. If that were the case, then everyone from Rachel Maddow to most of the Fox News hosts and all the others, CNN in its totality, would be off the air because Trump was right about some things. Even a stop clock is right twice a day. But when Trump said these people were fake news, he was right about that.
He was right. Yeah, he was right. And it's funny because here in the States, Trump co-opted that term because we were saying that about the liberal media and really Fox News at the time in the Bernie camp at the time, because they were always lying about Bernie Sanders for obvious reasons at the time. But no, you were 100% right. And it's funny to me because I'm old enough to remember, George, that if you went on YouTube and even if you said the word Nazi, let alone try to praise them or carry water for them, you would have been removed immediately. But now you have people going on Rachel Maddow, literally trying to carry water for Hitler, saying, Hitler wasn't even as bad as Putin is, based on lies. And if Rachel Maddow, that was your I think you would agree, we would be canceled. Our shows would be removed. We would be banned.
Exactly.
But Rachel Maddow was still collecting a paycheck.
They said on Maddow, and then tweeted it, now deleted, that Hitler didn't use chemical weapons, which means that 6 million ethnic Germans, meaning A, German Jews were not Germans, which is what Hitler said, of course. And B, it means that 6 million people were not gassed with chemical weapons. Chemical weapons. That's what Rachel Maddow said. Or someone, McFall, said on her show. And then she tweeted it without attribution, i.e. assuming ownership of her. She's not been taken off the air.
Somebody sat down in production meeting and was like, yep, that's the clip. Let's go ahead and put it on social media. They went back, looked at it and said, this is what we need to post. That's ridiculous. Somebody's be held accountable, but they won't be, right? Because they get paid to lie. They get paid to smear, and that's and like you said, there are only a few of us standing because where they may not take you off explicitly, they'll just demonetize you, they'll shadow ban you, they'll make it almost impossible for you to grow a business independently because they saw that, I would say, maybe the rise of Trump in some instances, the rise of the Bernie Sanders movement, Tulsi Gabbard coming onto the scene, Hillary Clinton getting exposed, Biden being exposed. A lot of this stuff is because of independent journalists like you and I who are dedicated to nothing but the truth. And wherever that truth may fall, like I congratulated Trump and said he deserved a Nobel Peace Prize for what he did with North and South Korea. That had never been done, nor did we think it would happen in our lifetimes. And yet he was able to put his pride to the side and get that done. Whereas in the reverse, you had Hillary Clinton about to start World War III with North Korea, right? That's something that they don't like, is honesty, regardless of where that honesty and truth takes you. And as long as we keep allowing that as a population, not only over the pond where you're at, but here in the States, we're going to still see them try to normalize Nazis and pretend like it's not happening. Pretend as if they care about, they call, white, Christian, blue-eyed, blonde-haired refugees from Ukraine, those are political refugees. But if they're Mexican, if they're Honduran, if they're Somalian or African, well, those are illegals. As long as we keep allowing that binary thought process, that false paradigm of thinking and the suppression of speech, we're going to keep finding ourselves back in this exact same position.
Brilliantly put. Now, you mentioned Tulsi. I thought that she was outstanding for a time during the Russiagate affair. Then she dropped off my radar anyway. But now she's back, and she's being accused by Mitt Romney of being a traitor, literally guilty of treason. Tell the viewers about that, will you?
I find it funny because all she's done is say we should be striving for peace. And she's giving context to the situation between Russia and Ukraine that's very necessary. But also, I remember a time where several Democrats and FBI agents, not named perhaps Andrew McCabe and James Comey and some others, colluded to frame the president of the United States for treason, which, last I checked, in and of itself is treason. They, like, even with the impeachment situation, they lied about what President Trump at the time had done, claiming that he was the one who had threatened Zelensky to withhold aid and said he was bullying Zelensky, when there's a video of Joe Biden at the CFR bragging about doing that very thing and then denying it when he gets on the debate stage or claiming, oh, they're just claiming that because I'm their opponent, I'm his opponent, right? We've seen literal treason for 4 years. And for Mitt Romney or anyone else to look at Tulsi and say, I'm advocating, because she's saying I'm advocating for peace, therefore she is treasonous. That's absolutely absurd. I'm not surprised, because that's how they try to paint all of us, right, George? I mean, if you try to tell the truth, then you must be a propagandist, right? So I'm not surprised. But for them to do this to a veteran who is currently still in the military, who had a top secret clearance while she was in Congress, who is clear, I mean, you have to go through it's a hellacious process to get top secret clearance, okay? I would know because I used to have one. And for her to go through all that, and for them to have put in no service to this country, to look at someone who has and is very prideful about that service and claim that a colonel in the military is a traitor, you need to resign. And I 100% agree with Tulsi Gabbard on that front. Mitt Romney needs to apologize and resign. And if he does not provide any proof of what he is claiming, then I think she should sue him for slander.
Okay, let me interrupt right there, and because there's more to add to that. Let me put my ugly face back on here. Yeah, let me start here. And I'm glad that Nico mentioned the Avos Battalion, because that needs to be mentioned right now. And although I am kind of over my anger from TYT last summer for what they did to Kyle Kalinske, I just want to say that I'm still mad at them about it, but I'm cooled down and what have you. That the TYT is seriously mistaken about their take on the Avos Battalion. Kind of, I mean, there are bad people in Russia and Ukraine. I mean, it's that part of the world. I'm sorry, but there you see neo-Nazis in Ukraine. I mean, just a few months ago, they attacked a gay bar, for example. So, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that the United States indirectly supporting someone like the Avos Battalion. But remember, the United States indirectly supported the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. The United States is indirectly supporting terrorism against the West by propping up Saudi Arabia. And speaking of Tulsi Gabbard, she said this about Trump, and it's true about other previous presidents as well as this president. She said that Donald Trump is Saudi Arabia's bitch. Joe Biden is Saudi Arabia's bitch. Barack Obama was Saudi Arabia's bitch. George W. Bush was Saudi Arabia's bitch. Bill Clinton was Saudi Arabia's bitch. George Bush Sr. was Saudi Arabia's bitch. Ronald Reagan was Saudi Arabia's bitch. I mean, good Lord. I mean, every president comes along, Saudi Arabia treats like they're bitch. So anyway, now I'm glad Niko House mentioned this about independent journalists, independent media people, and the online left. If, for example, there's a lot of us folks that are being shadow banned. I mean, I'm not being banned, but I can't get my subscription up because I think that there are people out there that, believe it or not, sees me as a threat. I'm flattered, but George Galloway talks about the mainstream media was called fake news, and he said that Donald Trump, so stop clock giving the right time twice a day, and he had to agree it's fake news. So yeah, it is all fake news. Corporate media is fake news. Doesn't matter where it's Fox, doesn't matter where it's CNN, MSNBC, One American News Network, all these networks, they may disagree on some social issues, but when it comes to corporations and it comes to the military industrial complex and drone strikes halfway across the world, they're all kumbaya pretty much. And Niko House talk about how people feel threatened, the powers that be feel threatened by populist movements like Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. And there's a lot to criticize about Donald Trump. But even Ralph Nader says that the man is basically a threat to the system. And you can't, in that regard, I mean, I don't think that Trump is good for America, but at the same time, sometimes a wrecking ball or a human Molotov cocktail, like Michael Moore said several years ago, is needed. So I just think that instead of a Donald Trump, it would be nice to have a fiery progressive populist leftist in the White House for a change. And we don't get that with Democrats, unfortunately. But Niko House talks about Trump making progress with North Korea. Again, stop clock gets the right time twice a day. I do have to give it to him, and we were less interventionist under Trump. Doesn't mean I like Trump, but he also has anti-war base that he had to on the right that he had to talk to some of the more libertarian and paleo conservatives, and they're a little bit better at putting their elected representatives in the House and the Senate or the presidency, holding their feet to the fire. I wish that the left could have that power in the Democratic Party. But I like what Niko House said about refugees from the Ukraine, white, Christian, blue-eyed, blonde people, basically. And yet the United States will look down on Somalians and Mexicans and, people from, third world country, whether they're black or brown or what have you. So I hate to say, well, that's because this country is operating on a racist mindset. But it is if we're going to allow Ukrainians in here, but Somalians stay out, Mexicans, Guatemalans stay out. I mean, what the fuck is that? Honestly, what the fuck is that? Now, with regard to Tulsi Gabbard and Mitt Romney, I absolutely agree that Mitt Romney needs to apologize and resign. And Niko House is right. A lawsuit would be great against Mitt Romney. But I hope that she will keep that lawsuit going, unlike the lawsuit she had against Hillary Clinton she dropped. In fact, I would say that the lawsuit against Hillary Clinton is probably even more justified because Hillary Clinton fucked up her presidential campaign. And some of the negative directions I see Tulsi Gabbard go is because of Hillary Clinton. And shame on some of the lefties in the Democratic Party that decided to go and join up with Hillary Clinton. You chased away what could have been a very good ally, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, let me continue and I'll conclude. So let me do that.
Me too. It's harder in the US to do that than it is in some countries, of course. But I would have thought it was an open and shut case and one that the crowd would be happy to fund because this question of demonization, criminalization of independent minds and dissidents, this is what we are now. You're not old enough to remember, but a dissident was a thing in the Soviet Union, in the Eastern Bloc. We all used to love dissidents here in the West. Now we've become the dissidents. We're the ones that are being suppressed.
Do you remember the Ice Cube situation, George, where Ice Cube came out and said that he wasn't going to support either party because neither of them actually seemed to support black people? You remember how he was being attacked maliciously, lied upon, everything under the sun because he wouldn't support either party. So they said that he was a Trump supporter. Lil Wayne, another rapper, very popular guy, came out and explicitly supported Trump. Probably, and Lil Wayne, for all intents and purposes, is more popular than Ice Cube is. But guess what? He chose a side. So the attacks on Lil Wayne were few and far between. It lasted for like 4 hours. Because Ice Cube was independent-minded, and of course, a black man being independent-minded, saying that the black people should not trust either party until they show a concrete plan for how they're going to help us. He was attacked for days up until the election. And now, of course, he's been proven right, but that just goes to prove your point. It's the independent-minded that they don't like. If you choose a side, well, they can always, the theater encourages you to choose a side. You can work with that. But those who are willing to call out both sides and also give credit where credit is due, those tend to be seen as the most dangerous.
Lastly, Niko, and I'm grateful for your time, and speaking of dangerous rhetoric, just in the last 10 minutes, Joe Biden has described Vladimir Putin as a war criminal. That is one president calling another president a war criminal. And the Russian response is that this is unforgivable rhetoric. And one thing I know about Russians is when they say something, they mean it. When they say something is a red line, it is a red line. When they say that something is unforgivable, it will not be forgiven. So this means we're now locked into, not just for the course, the duration of these hostilities, which I pray will be mercifully short. But we are now locked into, as long as Biden and Putin are alive and in office, a virtual state of war between Russia and the United States, even if it hasn't come to direct shooting yet.
At the very least, a new Cold War.
Very, very, very dangerous moment, isn't it?
What I'm going to do, I will play you the rest of the video. I'm going to put it down sometime today, the link, and because I have to go in a few minutes. I have an engagement. Anyway, let me just, let me talk about what Niko House said about Ice Cube being a very independent person. And And basically what I think he's saying is that the white establishment tends to resent blacks and browns for being independent minded. And I think he has a point. Um, Basically, and even pasty ass white people who are independent minded, the powers that be would say, well, they're very privileged or what have you. And maybe if one person's independent, because maybe we all see what bullshit there is in there with the powers that be right now, who are playing games with our lives and all that. But you know um yeah, I like what George Galloway said about Biden accusing Putin of being a war criminal. Uh, a man that actually voted for the Iraq War, and it's not doing anything to put a stop to the drone strikes halfway across the globe. And, and there you go. And Niko House pretty much says that we have a new Cold War in our hands. So anyway, right now I would play more of this video, but I have to go in a few moments. So I'm running out of time, and I normally chat with people online, but I'm going to say that if you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree, comment anyway. Share this content if you can, and as a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. And feel free to subscribe to this channel, help make it grow. And until next time, we have a class struggle to wage, so let's wage some class warfare. And we are Julian Assange. Music.